You're listening to the Autism Weekly podcast. Each week, we share community voices and bring light to stories that increase awareness, acceptance, equity, access, and inclusion. If you haven't already, subscribe to join the Autism Weekly family. I'm your host, Jeff Skibitsky. This week, we're joined by Rachelle Vartanian, founder of the Living and Learning Enrichment Center. Inspired by her own parenting journey, Rachelle has dedicated her work to empowering individuals with autism. Today, we'll discuss autism advocacy, job training, clinical services, social programs, housing solutions, and much more. Welcome to the podcast, Rachelle Vartanian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's a litany of services and passion that you have, which must have come from somewhere. And I've learned this from everybody who is so involved with the autistic community. So can you give us a little bit of background that what inspired you, what brought this desire, this passion to be able to educate and empower others?
Sure. So I have a nonprofit. It's called Living and Learning Enrichment Center. And prior to that, I was a special education teacher. I was a special education teacher for 20 years in the Farmington public school system. I'm from Michigan. And what happened is I was working with kids. My degree was working with kids that had severe behavioral issues, and they didn't know what to do with the kids that had higher functioning autism. So they were putting them in my room. And it was a disaster. I mean, a lot of our people are walking targets to be bullied, and now they're in a classroom with kids with severe behavioral issues. And I just was looking at this thinking, this is not okay. The other thing that was going through my mind was that I had just learned my son had been diagnosed with what they then called Asperger's syndrome. So on a personal level, I was just thinking he will never survive this. Mm-hmm. And so I made a decision to go back to school and get a second master's in autism so I could somewhat have some answers. And as I was continuing to teach, I just kept looking at this thinking, what is going to happen when he gets done with school? Because the students that I had, when they got done with school, their parents were telling me they're living in the basement, they're playing video games, there's nothing. And I went into this panic of, oh my God, if I die, this kid's going to be homeless. I just gone through a divorce. So that's why that was going through my head. And so I took a pretty big leap of faith, and I quit my job. And my ex-husband, I had this beautiful house that we had built, and I sold it, and I moved us into a really horrible house. But that's how I was able to open the doors and survive.
Yeah, well, I'd love to kind of backtrack a little bit, because that experience that you had as a special ed teacher and looking at the broad diagnosis of autistic disorder is that you can't just say somebody has autism, let's put them in a classroom. Yeah. And I'd love to hear some of the limitations that you saw with that. I know that you saw the social component of potentially the bullying, the lack of opportunity to be able to kind of really foster some of those social skills. But what are some of the other barriers you saw as a teacher that said, you know what, there needed to be change in the way that we were approaching, empowering, teaching those that maybe were had more of the social academic abilities that maybe were not being fostered at that point?
Right. When I think about it that way, though, there was some of it mixing with that population that it helped both. A lot of social skills, and a lot of people that I was working with in my classroom, they had severe behavioral issues. At the time, I don't know if they call it this anymore, but they were labeled as emotionally impaired. So I did do some of the same activities as far as, how do you have a conversation with someone, that back and forth reciprocity, handshakes, so my son's 24 now, and I still am doing this. It's those unwritten rules that no one tells you about. We just kind of, watch people, and through osmosis, I guess we get it. It was a lot of that I was doing. And as I said, I'm still doing today with my son.
Yeah. And I mean, those rules are so important, not just for school access, but for life access, to be able to establish relationships, to be able to find community, to contribute, whether it's in the workspace or other places. So when you notice these areas and you put so much of your life on the line to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to commit to being able to find some solutions,
Mhm.
you developed this center. And what sort
Mhm.
of offerings did you feel like were necessary to be able to contribute the whole package, to be able to meet the
Yeah.
lifeline of a child?
Well, you kind of touched on it a little bit. That spectrum, it's almost overwhelming because their needs are all so different. So it was kind of like, okay, who am I going to focus on? Am I going to focus on people that need more support because their needs are different than someone that is more independent? So I was kind of all over the board in the beginning, to be totally honest. What I had to keep telling myself is my focus is independent living. That's
Mhm.
why you're doing this. Now, I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I thought, okay, I'm going to start with a Friday night hangout. I know that's very far from independent living, but I thought, let me just start with one program. And at least in my situation, my son didn't have friends. And a lot of the young people that I was working with, they were very isolated and they were in the same boat. So I created something, and we still have it today. It's still one of our biggest programs, called Friday Night Hangout. I wanted a place that was cool and hip. And it's like for them to be able to say, hey, I'm going to the hangout tonight. And it was every Friday night. So I had all this beautiful furniture from this house I used to have. So I was able to decorate this little storefront that I had rented for um, really beautifully, and it was homey. And we were there for I would do it for 3 hours every Friday night. We'd order pizza and play video games and walk into town. And it was just really trying to help them more than anything else create friendships with each other,
Mhm.
and doing things like, noticing that they have something in common and going, making the suggestion of, you guys should exchange phone numbers, and then just kind of helping them a little bit, texting. What I noticed a lot with at least my own son was that not anymore, but in the beginning, he would get a text and read it and go, yeah, and then just put his phone down and not respond. So it was a lot of that stuff, just trying to just really gently helping them make connections that way. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful.
I mean, but starting with something like that, where it's a Friday night hangout and you're really developing how to maintain friendships, how to build those social relationships, how to make something meaningful to people as far as friends or kind of that reciprocity of a relationship. So that from what I understand, merged into a larger social program that you were able to build.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear some of the successes that you saw along the way, because all of these things take time to develop.
Yeah,
Is
it
that you're
did.
going to see those small little successes as people go through the program. So when you built your social program, what did you see from some of the clients that came through?
It was, I remember this one person did not want to come. And so I'm talking to them, and I said to them, I took out $20 out of my purse, and I said, I want you to hold on to this. And if you do not have a good time tonight, you can keep it. But if you do, you need to pay me back. And so he paid me back. I mean, I knew he would. I More than anything, it was just getting them to come. That was the hardest thing. But once they did, I was able to help them, create these friendships. A lot of them started, not a lot of them, some of them started dating each other, which was so beautiful. And I still see some of the people that used to come to that program in the early days, walking down Main Street holding hands with a girl that I know they met at our program. That's like one of the best things. That was just made my heart just so full. Um, from that, though, what I started doing is looking at them and thinking, okay, if I'm going to get whatever this looks like, independent living, I got to help them work. So from that, I started creating job skill programs and vocational programs, and that just took off. But again, it did take a little bit, but now it's just, oh my gosh, we have over 200 people in just one of those programs. So I'd say that actually, of everything we do, I think that is one of the um, strongest programs we have.
Yeah, and just going back to that social piece that you mentioned, is that it seems as if that the safe space that you were able to create enabled folks to say, you know what, I want to be a part of this experience, And then that creates the learning opportunities. That creates the chance to be able to kind of help people navigate some of these difficult social situations. Did you see that firsthand as far as the importance of teaching versus creating the environment? Are they
Yeah,
about equal?
for sure. And I say it all the time, it's the culture, you know. The other thing I did was I got people that were neurotypical, that were their age, to participate too. And that was so powerful. You know, it's one of those things where I could say to, I'm going to use my son as an example. Hey, you need to comb your hair, and he'd roll his eyes. But if his peer said, hey, dude, your hair's a mess, you need to comb it, he'd be in there combing it. And
Hmm.
so that was the most beautiful thing. And how I would train these young adults that came in to, you know, support this was, I'm not looking for you to teach anything, or I just want you to go in there and hang out with people like you'd hang out with anyone. That was really powerful. It was amazing to see. What ended up happening was that group of people that came in to mentor, so many of them ended up becoming teachers, special education teachers themselves. And I didn't realize it would take on a life of itself. And it
Hmm.
did. Yeah, I mean, I had them there to help my people, and it ended up helping them so much.
Yeah, I've seen that same experience with my daughters where, just having the opportunity to engage and be around folks that have differing abilities, it
Exactly.
helps them have a lens of where those abilities are and stopping that thought process that somebody can't do something or
Right.
isn't able to engage with me in the way my other friends are. It's they engage differently. Let me figure
Differently.
this out. And it's the
Exactly.
skills you develop are amazing as a volunteer or as a support through that process, not just for the autistic individual, it's for the neurotypical individual as well, this perspectives and everything. That
Absolutely. And now, you know, one of our biggest programs is going to different businesses and having them partner with us. And for people that might need a little bit more support, they go to these job sites, like with one job coach and 3 or 4 of our members, and learn these skills, right? And then the goal is for them to go to one of these businesses and go, oh, this is where I want to work. And then we help them get the job. We hear it constantly that
mhm.
these businesses that partner with us, yeah, it started out with us asking them to help us with this, but they all say the same thing. It has changed the culture of their workplace, that they look forward to the days that we're there, and that it is given so much hope, especially to people that have or know someone else that maybe in their family that has a some type of different learning ability. You
Mhm.
know, it gives them hope that the company they work for is doing this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did these companies share with you the barriers that they saw that maybe inhibited their ability initially to say, hey, I want programs like this, or to jump in 2 feet without your support?
No, we definitely help them along the way, and we educate them. Um, I would say in the beginning, I think some of them may have been afraid to partner with us. The fear of unknown. They haven't
Mhm.
really been around someone that, you know, maybe had autism. But the hiring piece, I think the fear was, well, what if I hire this person and I need to let them go? Are they going to sue me? I heard a lot of that. You know, we had to reassure them that, you know, that's not what's going to happen, and this is going to be the best employee you ever had, because this becomes our people that, you know, we've got in jobs for, and we've placed over 200 people in paying jobs. They are the best employees out there because it is this job is their life. You know, this is
Mhm.
who they identify with, and they look forward to it, and they're not late, they're on time, and they're consistent. And so it's changing that stigma, whatever it was that they had in their
Yeah,
head.
I've heard that same sentiment so many times is that the some of the best employees have
Mhm.
been the autistic individuals for a variety of different reasons. But it's fulfilling for people to work in general, to be out there contributing in some ways. Do you feel like that over time that the I guess the variety of opportunities has broadened so that it isn't just one type of job that's
Yeah.
being opened up to us to autistic individuals, but it's more, this is where my passion is. there is a job type that I can find where I can be contributing in the world that I want to be contributing in.
I absolutely do. So I've been doing this 10 years. This is my 10-year anniversary. And in the beginning, to be totally honest, it was a lot of people, the first thing they would think of is, well, yeah, they can run the vacuum and they can clean the windows. And I had to kind of gently say, we can absolutely put that on the list of job things, but that's not our focus, and now, I mean, we are at country clubs, we're at BMW dealerships, different hotels and restaurants, and and then what we really try hard to do is find them a job that, I don't want to say it's their passion, maybe it is, sometimes it is, um, but that they enjoy. No one
Hmm.
wants to go to a place that they don't like, or people are mean to them, or so we work really hard on that. So, for example, my son, he loves computers, so we were able to get him a job at a place that had partnered with TikTok, and all day long he watched TikTok videos and flagged inappropriate videos and
Huh.
comments. Yeah. So we really try hard to do things like that to match them to something that they really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I love the fact that that's part of the priority system. Is that when I talk with my children, it's more in lines of, you want to find a career that makes
Yeah,
you feel like you're giving back in some way and that you feel fulfilled as an individual. And that part of that is
right.
choosing that process, choosing who you're working with, choosing what it is that your job is doing. And for some reason, historically, we didn't give that same thought process coaching advice to autistics.
I know.
And it's kind of a shame that it's
I
taken this
know.
long to get there. So,
You're right. No, you're right. Yeah, I think at that, especially I think it was like just get them a job. It wasn't
mhm.
even right. So they're going to do much better, obviously, if it is a job that they enjoy doing.
What are some of the common things that you end up coaching on? Is it on how to create the right accommodations, how to foster that culture, how to make somebody succeed?
Well, everyone's different, so all their needs are different. But and I keep giving my son as an example, because of privacy issues. But I I get a lot of social, like, they don't they're not sure if this person, if it was joking or if it was serious.
Hmm.
So yesterday, my son came home from work and he said, I made a mistake at work today. Um, this man came up to me and said, I'm paraphrasing this. Oh yeah, well I know kung fu. I'll knock you out. And my son thought he was serious. And
Mm.
he went up to him and he said, what's your problem with me? And the man said, dude, that I was totally kidding. Take a joke. Okay, so my son's processing this, and it's my son's telling me the story. I can see him processing it again. At the end of the day, he walked up to him again and said, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you were joking. Please forgive me. And the guy said, no problem. But that happens a lot. I remember one time I had a member call me. They were in the bathroom and they said, I don't know if they're joking or if they're serious, but they just said to me, get out of here. And I go, well, tell me the context. Tell me. And he's telling me that he said something. The guy was like, get out of here, joking. So
Uh,
I'm telling him while he's in the bathroom stall, I'm telling him he's joking. That's a joke. So a
mhm.
lot of that.
Yeah, and having that shared knowledge, I would imagine they're reaching out to you, but I would also kind of look at the fact that if you're able to coach the employers, coach
Yes.
people within the environment, they have
Yeah.
folks internally that they're able to kind of use as a sounding board occasionally if there are social challenges like you're describing, or employee conflicts, which will exist for all of us,
All of us. Right.
which
Yeah.
are probably more challenging if somebody is having difficulty taking a perspective of another individual. So
Right.
I could see that service you're doing to be so valuable to enhance that work environment. So you do this, you create the job opportunities, you're
Hmm.
training the employer, but
Hmm.
also working with the employee.
Right.
You built social programs, but there's also that life piece. And I know that your program has also focused on being able to empower people to live independently.
Hmm.
And that's also being able to take care of oneself, take care of
Yeah.
their finances. what does that component look like when you're trying to be able to create that place where somebody has as much independence as they can within their living environment?
Right. So there's apartments across the street from my center. I don't own them, but we do have 5 people living there that come to Living and Learning. And I piloted it on my son. So he moved in first. I figured if I make a mistake, it's my own kid. And I'll tell you, with him, it was um, food. It was, he just wanted to DoorDash, every day, and cleaning up. I mean, he would put his towels in the laundry room at the apartment, but it's like he's not unloading dishes. He's not, so that piece is a big one. I would say with all of them, I shouldn't say all of them, but it seems like the cooking piece that seemed to be the hardest part. Like they were all eating horribly, I thought. So
Hmm.
that. So we did start cooking classes.
Okay.
Um, right. We got an occupational therapist to really break down the tasks for them, and go to the grocery store and breaking down the recipe, and then taking pictures of each thing that they'll need to cook this. So we're taking steps in the right direction. And then one more thing I would say is the which this is hard for me too, budgeting money.
Yep.
So, just spending everything. I got it. I'm spending it all. So we
Hmm.
did bring a credit union in to do workshops with them and everything, but that one still, is probably an ongoing.
Yeah, but in order to have self-determination, you have to have some ability for kind of that financial literacy to understand how to be able to deal with your own finances, or else you're always going to rely on somebody else to be able to
Yeah,
make those decisions for you. And you always, no matter who your child is, you want them to get closer and closer to independence. And that might not be that they
absolutely.
can make all those decisions, but that they have a voice in the process maybe is an important step. How do you make sure that families have a way to be able to help support some of these independent living processes? Do you create a community of people involved and involved in the caretaking and in the education process?
Well, that's my goal. My dream is there are apartments a couple miles away from us. My dream is to buy those apartments, and anyone can live there, so it's inclusive. But if you do have a special need or you're a senior citizen, we're going to support you. And I have an ABA and psychotherapy team. I would move them to those apartments. And let's say I'm making this up. Someone's living there and they're having a hard time, I don't know, hanging up clothes. We would bring in the ABA therapist in their own apartment and help them master it there. So I didn't absolutely exactly answer your question because you're asking for the parent piece of it. What I see with a lot of parents, and I'm that way too, is that we don't let them make mistakes.
Hmm.
And that is the biggest thing. It's okay. They're going to make mistakes. You want them to because you're going to learn from it then.
Yeah.
So let them do it. My son, like I said, he lived at those apartments for 2 years. He moved back home about a year ago. And at first I was the same, I'm thinking, oh my God, it's regression. And it wasn't. I mean, he is almost like fine tuning things. I feel like
Hmm.
that he was having problems with when he was living by himself.
Yep. And you'd mentioned your ABA team being an integral part of this. For adult services, is that unfortunately there aren't a lot of resources out, and the ABA world has a capacity issue that they have not been able to expand appropriately to be able to support adults in the way that they need to.
Yeah.
But one thing that's always out there is, for adults to have independence. And ABA has been linked to, and maybe this was back in the early days of ABA where it was more compliance based
Oh
and
yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
but you're dealing with a whole different wave of individuals and the practice has changed over time. So how do
Hmm.
you make sure that as somebody's learning, they're a part of the decision making process, is that they are assenting to your therapeutic teams to say, this
Right.
is important to me. Let's work on this.
Exactly.
How
Exactly.
does that
Well,
work?
hopefully they are saying it already. But if they're not, it's not like we're meeting with the mom and dad and asking them, "What do you want us to work on?" We're sitting all together, and
Hmm.
the good part with parents is sometimes someone that's on the spectrum at that moment when you say to them, what do you want to work on? They can't think of it. But as soon as a parent or someone says, nudges them a bit, says, well, what about budgeting, or what about, oh yeah, that's what I want, that's exactly what I need to be working on. So absolutely, you have to be a team. It's got to be a buy-in from that individual as well, otherwise they're not going to do it. So
Yeah.
I when you were talking about ABA, you're right. In the beginning, I mean, I remember what ABA was in the beginning. We do it in a very naturalistic, they're in a house, and it's more than anything, learning skills to be as independent as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's what EDA has turned into when people are doing it appropriately
Yeah,
nowadays, anyways, is that it's
right.
turned into this process of understanding how to empower people, how to look at their strengths and build off of that. And that's from age 3 all the way through adulthood. It's just
Hmm.
different how you approach that, as that the level of self-determination probably goes up with skill set as time goes on, is
Exactly.
that you have to
Exactly.
empower people. Well, I think that having that conjunction of bringing in those additional services and then providing the life opportunities is an amazing opportunity for all of the folks that are going through your center. So, but this takes advocacy. We just talked about the fact that the resources aren't always there. How are you making sure that folks know about what you're doing and they know the benefits of being able to promote this independence, and so that there are more resources and more professionals helping to take on these responsibilities?
Well, one thing I do is I will meet with anyone. I will talk to anyone. So, I was just somewhere today where they're doing services that maybe one or two are similar to ours, and then, plugging it for them, telling other people about it, being a resource for my families, that this exists out here too. And so anyone doing anything, I'm constantly pushing it forward so my families can see it. We have a parent support group that meets once a month, and I bring in different people. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's, a banker, maybe it's a finance advisor, a financial advisor, whoever I think could benefit, this group of people. I bring them in, and we tell parents first, this is who's coming this month to speak, and then they can join virtually or in person if they think it's a worthwhile, it would be worthwhile for them. But I think that I'm definitely, I work really hard not to make other people, other organizations to feel like we're competing with them. We need to be working together for us to be moving forward.
Absolutely, and it does take a variety of professionals to succeed, because we all, as specialists, cannot know it all. We need to be relying on
Right.
each other.
And ABA might not work for your person, but
hmm
maybe it will for this person. Maybe an occupational therapist or a speech path is more, you know what I mean? Everyone is so different. So it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I always try and to think through with a family is the fact that, we're at this point in time, and we could have a 6-year-old child just
Hmm.
starting school.
Hmm.
But I'm always putting in my mind, okay, so what are your goals for 3 years, for 8 years, for 10 years out? You are now working with a lot of the adults. What would
Hmm.
you be suggesting to families who are maybe younger on, how to be able to start developing some of the skills that might be necessary to be able to access some of these independent skills or independent learning or independent opportunities that you'll need as you get older?
You know what? That's a great question. Okay. Every parent's different, every situation is different, but I would, as much as I can, this is going to sound bad, but don't do as much for your kids as you have before. For example, washing clothes. Um, Teach them how to do it so that
Mhm.
they're doing, and that they can make the mistake while they're living with you. If you're at a restaurant and you order for your kid, stop doing that. And I get it. Sometimes our people, anxiety and everything else, make them do it. Whether they point to it, whether help them in every single life area, be as independent as possible. Give them the money and have them take the check up to be paid.
Mhm.
Be making them do all these things. Don't do it for them. And it's hard. It's hard not to.
Yeah. And I mean, just you mentioned the idea of having that village of support around you, but it's also, I would imagine, is that as somebody is younger, is that you talk to their team,
Yeah,
identify the areas that they can start being
right.
independent, and as a parent, encourage that as much as possible. Allow the failure every once in a while, but use the skills
Exactly.
that they have as much as you can out in the community and allow that to proliferate.
Yeah, let them make the mistakes at home. You know,
Hmm.
our hopefully your home is kinder than the world, and let them make mistakes at home, and don't look at it as a mistake. Look at it as, this is awesome. I can teach you this now. Right now, you're going to be able to learn this.
Hmm. Well, your program has been ever evolving over the years. You've been bringing on more and more things, and which I've learned as well is that it feels like there's always something on the horizon. There's always an idea that I would love to
Mhm.
be able to incorporate in the future that is sitting there, but it's like, well, it's right now the right time is the right priority. But what are the components that you'd love to continue to bring into your program as time goes on that will empower the individuals even more?
You know what? It never occurred to me that our people are going to be senior citizens at some point. I think we need to be creating programs for senior citizens too. And that's why I said when I buy those apartments one day, I'm going to have it's not just for someone that has a special need. If you are a senior citizen too, because our people will be, and I
Hmm.
don't think we think about that. And then, I mean, there's not a lot out there now. Can you imagine being a senior citizen with some type of different learning ability? And there's nothing out there. So I think we
Mm.
need to be constantly thinking about the next step, like you said, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. What will
Yep.
my life look like?
And that's a time period where it's relatively easy to fall into loneliness. It's
Yes.
easy to lose your social connectivity, and it is important. And hopefully people do start thinking about these issues because it is a lifespan perspective that we need to be
Hmm.
taking, is that
Hmm.
we've put a lot of resources to understand how can we make somebody's life better from ages 3 to 10 right now. A
Hmm.
lot of funding went to being able to figure that, so maybe you can
Yes.
empower people to be able to contribute and live their best life from 10 to 20. And now we
Yeah.
need to focus on that population. How do we empower that? How do we make that
Yes.
better? But I think you're right, is that continuing to be ahead of the game rather
Exactly.
waiting for a problem is so important.
Exactly.
So what would you be telling a family right now, or an individual that's autistic who's trying to navigate, hey, you know what, I have some challenges. I want to be able to do more with my work life. I want to have more independence. Where should they be finding these resources?
Well, it depends where you live. I mean, for us, you would just email or call us, and we would set you up with what we do in intake. We do it for everyone because everyone is different. I don't want to just hand someone a menu of the different options we have. I want to personalize it for you. So I need to know you first. I need to meet you. Um, what else? I would look at parent support groups, and I'm seeing more and more support or programs for people that have autism that they're creating themselves. I just saw one the other day that this group of people with autism created a Dungeons and Dragons group, which I think is great. I mean, so do things like that. Look in, there's different places online, Facebook groups that you can punch in your favorite hobby, and there's a group for it. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be one that all the people have autism. I would join
Mhm.
any of them.
Yep, and follow your interests and find
Yes.
people. And I think the other thing is not being scared to put yourself out there. Is hopefully we've become a little bit more of a society where we're willing to understand other people's perspectives, how
Yeah.
they're seeing the world. We're not all great at it yet. I mean, we're all improving, but
Yeah.
there's safer spaces out there right now to be
Right.
able to kind of jump into and give it a try around your passion. I like your advice on that. Well, Rachelle, I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your experience and sharing your knowledge around this. I hope that there are more programs that are looking at that holistic factor that you've already described so well to be able to build around a support system that's going to be able to create that independence and that feeling of self-sufficiency and self-empowerment, which are so important. So I hope those continue, and I hope your voice is able to reach a variety of people. Do you mind sharing with us your website so people can kind of see what sort of services are done within a package like yours?
Yeah, I would love it. Livingandlearningcenter.org. And the other thing is, when you go on there, you'll see different emails. My emails are Vartanian at llecmi.org. Anyone, if you have an idea or you want advice or suggestions, I want to talk to anyone. I want to help anyone that wants to do anything because we need more programs out there.
No, absolutely. There's a dearth of them right now, and the more that we can put out there, not only does that provide more resources, but it also creates a more collaborative structure where folks can learn from each other and be able to kind of
Exactly.
build a
Exactly.
stronger. So, well, thank you so much, Rachelle. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing the success and the growth of what you're building right now.
Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to Autism Weekly. We hope you tune back in next week to learn more about autism in the real world. Autism Weekly is now found on all the major listening apps, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more. Subscribe to be notified when we post a new podcast. Autism Weekly is produced by ABS Kids. ABS Kids is proud to provide diagnostic assessments and ABA therapy to children with developmental delays like autism spectrum disorder. You can learn more about ABS Kids and the Autism Weekly podcast by visiting abskids.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you again next week.